Hey, all you Feminerds out there. Welcome to the very first episode of File741, a comic and art review podcast. I'm Beckah.
And I'm Leigh.
And today, on this very windy day in Denver, we are going to talk about DiNK.
DiNK is the Denver Independent Comic and Art Expo that happened last weekend, and we're going to talk about our experience.
So I am a writer, but not an artist.
And I am not a writer, but I am an artist.
So I had never been to DiNK before and just decided on a whim to go because I knew that Leigh was going. And I got an email about a screening of I Killed Giants, which is a movie based on the graphic novel by Joe Kelly and Kim Niimura. So I bought 2 tickets and invited Leigh.
I have been to DiNK before, so this is my second time going. I did not read the graphic novel of I Killed Giants, so this was new to me. And Beckah had read it before, but we both had not seen the movie before, although we've both seen the trailer, I believe.
So one thing I was really curious about was the graphic novel is, of course, in black and white. And I feel that serves the story so well that I was really curious to see how it would translate to a color film. But I thought in general, the integrity of the story was kept, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed the adaptation.
I did not have any expectations because I did not read the book, so I went in with a fresh mind. I was really impressed with it, though. It was very moving, and the story, I really just fell in love with the story. So as soon as we saw it, I wanted to go out and buy the graphic novel, which we did at DiNK.
Yeah, I felt especially that the environment that the film created really matched the sense and feelings of the book. And I thought that the film had really great sound design because that's something that it's really hard to translate from a graphic novel to an actual visual auditory medium. And I thought they did such a great job translating that.
I would agree with that. And also the acting was fantastic.
Yes.
The lead gal, Madison Wolfe, I believe her name is, who played Barbara, did a fantastic job. That was a really difficult character to portray, especially at that age.
I think, too, what is so interesting about the character that Joe Kelly was there for a Q&A afterwards talked about is that the character is not really likable for a good portion of the book. And so it's hard to kind of understand why she's doing what she's doing until a certain point. And then you really start to understand, you know, you're seeing this from her perspective, and she has such a narrow focus that she just doesn't really acknowledge the feelings of the people around her. And I thought the actress portrayed that really well. And also then when you understood her story, you were with her the whole way.
Yes, I agree with that. At the beginning, I was really unsure about the lead character and where this was going, and also whether I liked her or not. But by the end of it, I had already decided and was planning out my cosplay for Denver Comic Con later this year.
Yes. Yeah, I think that I used to be so against film adaptations of books just on principle, and but now I just recognize that it's a different way of telling a story. And so if the essence of the story is still present, then I am more willing to go along with it. And I thought that this film did such a good job with what the story is and what it feels like.
I agree. So during the Q&A, one of my favorite parts that they discussed, seeing as I had not seen the graphic novel before this, was that they had to do a lot of changes from the graphic novel to the adaptation of the movie. And the main one was in the graphic novel, apparently it's very obvious that what Barbara is going through is very much a part of her imagination and her mind. Whereas in the movie, they wanted that to be a little bit more questionable. They wanted it to be wondering whether that giant is real. Is this really happening in reality, or is this actually just happening in her mind? So I think the movie did a fantastic job of figuring that out. There were a couple of parts where I questioned whether this was really happening in real life or whether this was just her mind. And the examples of that was through her best friend Sophia in the movie, who also witnessed and saw some of the same things that Barbara would have seen, and so that makes you wonder, gee, was this really happening, or is it just something in her mind? And so in the graphic novel, for an example, they had taken out some fairies, and there was a scene, I guess, where she's wearing armor, and the armor gets displaced. And so they took that out for the movie so that they could show the audience, make it more questionable what's really reality and what's really imagination.
Yeah, we really had a good time, and it was a really great way to start the weekend. So I've never been to DiNK before, but you have, Leigh. So how was your experience this year different from years in the past?
I went through for the first time last year, had no idea really what to expect, but I was really impressed by it because I really like independent comics, and I really like getting to meet people who are not mainstream. It was kind of, I don't know. It seemed a little bigger this year than it did last year, and it seemed like they had it organized completely differently. My biggest concern at the beginning, because it was something that I really appreciated about it last year, is that they gave you a free drink ticket when you got in there. They did not give me a free drink ticket this time, and they had made that only a VIP thing, and that was disappointing.
Rude.
And also their merchandise, they didn't have any larger sizes. Like, it was the first day, and they were already like sold out and didn't have half the sizes, so I didn't buy any of the DiNK merchandise this year. But that was my only big complaints about that. Other than that, what was really cool about this year versus last year is I saw way more female comics and authors and artists, and way more queer representation. It felt like pretty much every other booth had somebody queer involved into it, and I love that.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my time handing out stickers with our logo and website on it to invite people to be on this podcast. And because we approach things from a feminist, mostly queer perspective, it was so cool to see so many female artists and writers and so many queer representation. Like you said, it was really awesome to see how much of that was a part of the organization and how much it was valued.
Especially coming just after ClexaCon the weekend before. So I was really wanting to see more queer representation outside of that con.
Yeah, one of the things that was really cool, I only went to a couple of panels on Sunday, and one of the panels I went to was called What is Queer? Discussions of Identity in Independent Comics. One of the gentlemen that was there had been in comics since the 1970s and was invited to edit gay comics late in the 1970s. And he said that was a really great way for him to come out without it being a confessional, that he was able to have a group of writers and artists sharing these queer stories. And they were very specific about wanting both male and female identities represented. And then the panel kind of talked about what happened in the early 2000s with the queer press and queer bookstores basically died out. And so distribution basically fell apart. So then queer artists needed to find a different venue and a different way to get their work out there. And so web comics and kind of the indie scene became the place to go to share those queer stories. The panelists also talked about how because big bookstores started carrying more gay books, that kind of helped kill the independent bookstore. And that also leaves kind of a conundrum for people who want to put out more queer works, because there's this line that you have to draw between being not too queer for large publishers to get your work out there, but queer enough for the audience that you're trying to attract, and how difficult it is to be true to the representation that that is important to you, but also making sure that your work is getting out there and that people are seeing it and appreciating it.
That makes sense.
I also went to the panel from Meow Wolf, which was the group that is based out of Santa Fe, and they're building an art exhibit here in Denver.
I wasn't able to go to any panels this year, which I was super disappointed about because I couldn't go on Sunday. But that was because I was too busy recording the podcast for ClexaCon.
What? But anyway, I feel like I wanted to go to more panels, but I was also more interested in spending time with the artists and actually seeing what art was out there. And I was also pretty disappointed in the Meow Wolf panel. It was supposed to be all about bringing concept art to life, but there were two panelists who had only been with Meow Wolf for a couple of years, and then one panelist who had been kind of in the periphery of Meow Wolf since its inception, but he didn't really have much to say. So I was more interested in how Meow Wolf came about and how the art from the creators gets conceptualized, but the concept artists were just kind of talking about they are part of the narrative, but they kind of get handed information and they have to then figure out how their artwork fits into the larger narrative. So it was sort of interesting, but they didn't really go into much of what I was interested in hearing them talk about.
Isn't there a recent documentary about how Meow Wolf came to be?
I don't know, but if there is, I will check it out.
We should.
So in general, we saw a ton of really amazing artwork, a lot of really great books. And so we're just going to spend a couple of minutes talking about our favorite artists that we saw there. And there were so many, but we're just going to talk about a few. One of mine was a young woman who I had met at Mutiny Cafe here in Denver last year for Free Comic Book Day. She had kind of sketches of the artwork in the book that she was planning to put together. Her name is Thea J, and her book is called Amelia. And I just really liked the look of her work. And so this year, the book was actually published and put together. So I bought a copy. She has a copy that's only black and white and a copy that has some minimal color added to it. And I really she's a young woman of color, which I really want to support, being a white person and wanting to support that perspective. And she was just so enthusiastic and so nice when we talked to her last year. I think Leigh was there as well. And there's something about her artwork. It's very precise, but there's also kind of a roughness to the way that it's drawn and kind of the story that just really drew me. So I bought her book and I'm really excited to share it with other people and promote a local artist.
One of the favorite comics that I enjoy seeing, and I see her all the time at different cons, so not just this con, and also at all of the Rocky Mountain Roller Girls Derby bouts, is the author and the creator and artist of Flat Track Furies, which is a comic all about being in roller derby. Her name is Moriah Hummer, and she's also a local artist. I think she's from Fort Collins. If you follow her on Instagram, she has the most amazing, beautiful purple motorcycle, but she's also really nice, and I really enjoy talking to her every time I see her around. So she's got a few issues you guys should definitely check out.
So one of the things that I really like to see is individual artists' interpretation of existing work. So I love to see, I bought a pack of Steven Universe stickers from someone, and I like to see the way that people interpret the things that I love. So there was an artist there. She's a conceptual artist and illustrative artist. Her name is Reilly Leeds, and she had these stickers, and I bought a 3-pack. So I bought a sticker of Paranorman, which is a Leica film, and if you haven't seen it, you need to see it now because it is super underrated and amazing. A sticker from Over the Garden Wall, which is also this really great cartoon that in the library we keep it in the kids section, and I'm not sure why because it's a little creepy. And also a rainbow vomiting Babadook. So it was really fun to just kind of get those fun little interpretations of things I love.
Another artist that we ran into while we were there is Josh Trujillo, who is the author and the artist and creator of Love Machines, which is a comic about love stories involving our lives, including technology. I had not read this, and my friend that I was with had not read it yet either, but we had seen it at Klexicon the weekend before at one of the queer publisher booths. And so it was really cool to see a lot of that represented at DiNK as well. So we told him that we had seen his book there, and he didn't know what Klexicon was. So that kind of opened up a great conversation about queer cons and how we should have a lot more of those.
One of the other artists I was really interested in is a woman named Christina Badhand. I had actually seen some of her artwork displayed in Cheyenne, Wyoming at the Old West Frontier Days Museum through a Native Realities publishing company exhibit. She had a deck of cards that she had illustrated, and I saw them displayed here at DiNK. That were just so beautiful. So I ended up just getting a sticker that illustrates 3 Native women, and one, they all have paint on their faces, and one has her mouth covered, one has her eyes covered, and one has her ear covered. And she talked about how it represents how many women are murdered or go missing from the Native and First Nation communities, and how if we don't talk about it, see it, or hear or listen about it, then it just goes away and nothing changes. So I really like to support artists that have a really strong statement with their work.
The last ones that that stuck out for me is we had some celebrity, so to speak, comic artists there, including Nick Seluk, who does the Awkward Yeti. I absolutely adore that webcomic, and I really tried hard not to buy all of his merchandise. The other person that was there was Jeffrey Brown, who does all the Star Wars, the kids' Star Wars books, like Vader's Little Princess and Jedi Academy and things like that. I got my copy of Vader's Little Princess signed by him, and he drew me a little comic that was personalized in it, so I really appreciated that. The last thing that I really went a little bat poop crazy on was that there was a bicycle playing cards booth, and there was a guy who designed a bunch of different cards, and they were meant for magic and manipulation and things like that. And as most people know who know me, I am a magician, so I had to buy a good portion of those cards to everybody's disdain, as they had to wait 20 minutes for me to go through and look at every single one and figure out the playing tricks that they were going to be used for and what I wanted to do.
I fully support your magicianship.
Thank you. So we had a really great time this year, and we're really excited to continue supporting DiNK and a lot of the independent comics that are there.
We are also really excited to continue this podcast. Mm-hmm. So our plan is to have every other podcast be a review of a comic or graphic novel, and then also supplement that with guest artists and writers.
Yay!
And we are so excited to announce that our next episode, we are going to have guest artist Kit Seaton and guest writer Layla Del Duca from the graphic novel Afar, which is so amazing. We're so excited to have a conversation with them and to share that with you. So tune in at the beginning of May for that episode.
We have so many more things to discuss with you guys, so we are looking forward to sharing that with you in future podcasts, which you can always check out on the feminerdfiles.net.